Welcome to my hobby bench once again, and another episode of Engine Talk. I believe this is episode number 24. Today we're going to talk about these two engines that are on my table. This one is my OS FT-240 Super Gemini engine that I just finished reassembling, and this one is an engine that I've never had before, so we're going to start with that. This is an engine that came to me from a new really good friend, Garrett, who is also the creator of the Swamp Juice fuel experiment. The fuel and the experiment that I'm going to be running that I just put a video out about yesterday or the day before. So in addition to the Moki engines Garrett sent me, he sent me another little tote that has some other engines in it. The other engines were not as interesting as this one is, at least not interesting enough at this time to make a video about it. But this just so happens to be an HP 61. More specifically, this is the HP 61F. And this is an engine that dates back to 1971, I believe, if not even further. And it is complete for the most part. Doesn't have a prop washer on it, but I think I can remedy that. And it's got the original carb, and there's a good review article on this that I'll link in the description of this. But it's one of these things where it has, I've had all three of the HP 61 engines now. I've had the one really long nose one, I don't know if that was just the HP 61, that had the rear carb. And it had an exhaust very much like this, where it had the means of attaching the carb is that it just kind of fits in this thing, and then it just has this wire thing that clips around there. Now, unfortunately, this one is missing the second clip to attach it to. It looks like maybe this whole through-hole boss here is still more or less intact. There's a hole here, which I'm not sure. I may just have to JB weld that up. And I'm not sure if that is the fuel or the tank pressure line that's broken off, or what is going on with that. Maybe it doesn't need tank pressure. And of course here it looks like the tail pipe is either cut out intentionally or damage. But anyway, so to attach this thing, I want to use this exhaust, obviously, because it's a very specialized exhaust opening that really this only fits. So it's either you run this exhaust, you find another exhaust that has that kind of an opening, which I don't know where I would find that, or you run an open exhaust. But I think what I can do is, I think there's enough material there that I might be able to get some baling wire or some electric fence wire and run it through there, wrap it around here, and kind of tie it around that thing that's sticking out there, and just kind of, hopefully that'll hold it at least enough so that we can run it. But this engine is really nice. It's in really good shape. I don't have, let's see here. I thought I had some glow plugs just laying up here. Yeah, here's one. Let me just throw a plug in here real quick and see what the compression feels like on this thing. Oh my, yeah, it's got some really nice compression. Now this is a ringed engine. Wow, that has really got some strong compression. This is really a cool engine. So this one is going to be a fun one to run. And I said I've had all three on the channel before, and the first one was a very long time ago. The second one is this. This one is the HP 61 FS, I believe is what they call this. This one is also completely stock except for this Webra exhaust that I've got on it. So here are my currently my only two HP 61 two-stroke engines, but believe me, I really have a ton of 60 size two-strokes right now. I've got at least 7 or 8 of various varieties. But I mean, just look at these two things, these two engines. They are really rather different, and I believe this one was like, God, I'd have to go back and find that review, 74 maybe. This one came out in like 68, 71 or so. Thought they said maybe 68, but they didn't get around to reviewing it until 71, something like that. But this one also has this interesting rear cover where it's just, you have to find some kind of a tool that'll fit in there like a spanner of some sort and unscrew this should you ever need to do that. Now obviously at some point I'll probably do a bearing change on this thing. And the other thing I thought was interesting is the carb attachment is just a single screw that goes in from the front. So that's interesting, but it's got this nice long throttle arm. But back to comparing these two, I mean, look at the size of the carburetor differences. Now, this big opening here is obviously a lot bigger, but what we're really concerned about is, and you're probably not going to be able to see it, because I'm not able to see it so well, is actually the bore. But I mean, just look at compare the carb bodies. I mean, they're huge. There's a huge difference there. And this one does have a different size set of bearings in it. So these, and I really like this, polished chrome look. So these are my 2 HP engines. And this one's going to be really fun to run. So I appreciate this, Garrett. This is a really, really cool engine to have to feature on the channel. Now, back to this guy. This is part 2 of this engine talk episode. Now, some of you may be a little upset that I didn't do a reassembly video series on this, but it was kind of one of those things where I titled that last series a disassembly series, not a disassembly and reassembly series. And sometimes it's one of those things where I want to put together an engine or mess with an engine without having to worry about running a camera and talking and all those things, because it's kind of one of those Zen moment things where I can just sit there and just focus entirely on the engine. So the only things of note, and I'll just kind of quickly go through some of the things that were not really a surprise to me, but maybe order of operations or things you need to watch out for, be careful of, be mindful of when you reassemble one of these is, first thing I did was I put the connecting rods on. No, I think the very first thing I did was I put the rear cover back on. So I had pulled these little sleeves out of this boss here and this screw here. They had the little sleeves because these are the through hole screws that have the nut on them. So I had to go find those in my bin and push those back in. And when I went to put the cover on, I discovered that this bearing here was about 1/2 millimeter out from being fully pressed in because I couldn't get that cover to close completely. So I had to press that bearing in again, which was not a big deal. So I put the cover on, and then of course I went straight to connecting rods. And the connecting rods are not a big deal to put on. It's just you're trying to do that and you're like, well, you have to get that end cap on first. So you put the end cap on with a whole bunch of oil and hope that there's enough surface tension to hold that thing on there. So what I did was I put the end cap on and I left one screw in. So I didn't have both screws out. I had one screw in so that when I could finagle that the big part of the connecting rod, the main part of the connecting rod up there and kind of made it up, I could automatically kind of start threading that in so they wouldn't drop and fall apart. Other than that, not a big deal. Pretty simple thing there. The next order of operations then for me was I never fully completely pulled those piston pins out. I pulled them out just enough to get them off the connecting rod, so I pulled those things out completely, cleaned them up, made sure they slid nice and easy, and then of course I had the fun task of putting those little retaining clips in there. And I would put one retaining clip in the piston, one side, this side, and push my pin here this way, and then put that other clip in there. So the next thing that was interesting was these sleeves are a tight fit. They are a very tight fit, mechanical tight fit to the crankcase. So it's not like they just slide into place. They kind of have to be walked into place just perfectly, and I had to use my little Delrin block to kind of tap it. And then of course, since it's so tight, I put one screw in there and just kind of wiggle it until I could see that there was no angular pressure on the screw and it was in there. So I had to sit there and thread them. I threaded all the screws in by hand as far as they could go, and then that's where it's really important to have that cut down L wrench so that you can get it in there and gauge it to do the final tightening. Next thing was obviously put the head on. So as you saw when I disassembled this, I never took the rocker arms out at all. And I intentionally did that because I wanted to maintain the right-left orientation of those rocker arms, just because of the fact that there's such a low-time engine, there was really no reason to take them out. So what I did was, when I put the heads on, I left the rockers in, and then when it got time to put the push rods in, instead of taking that shaft out all the way and having them both drop out, I loosened the nut here that's holding that shaft on, and then I just pushed the shaft up just enough so I could get one rocker arm out at a time. Drop the push rod in, put the rocker arm back in, then push the shaft this way, and did the same thing. So that way I was ensuring that at least they maintained their right-left orientation, and I'm 99% certain that there was no difference in the length of these push rods. And I'll explain why I'm talking about that, because the push rods was such a low-time engine. I checked and they looked at the identical length. So I did that with both sides, and I went to check the valve lash. I'm thinking I don't even have to check the valve lash because, of course I'm going to, but it's like I shouldn't have to because it'll be fine. So I'm not sure. Now, this engine was given to me like, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it was new in box, and I can't recall. I'd have to go back and look at the video, see if I even mentioned it, whether or not I ever actually checked the valve lash before I ran it the first time, because what I found was that the valve lash was not right on either of these. I had to readjust again. So, and it's maybe one of those things where, of course, you always have to readjust it. But I mean, if things haven't moved, then why should you? And I think I'd only had maybe 5 runs on this. So it was this cylinder here. The exhaust was too tight. Too tight. The intake was fine. Or the intake was fine. Exhaust was too tight, which I thought was odd. And then on this head, both of them were too tight. And even though it had really good compression and all that, but it's got freaking massive compression now. I mean, this thing is beautiful. So that's those are the only gotchas I think that I found. The other thing is that of the five head screws, these 2 are shorter than these 2 and the third one that goes back here. So you just got to kind of keep an eye out for that. Other than that, I mean, there's really nothing to reassembling this thing that you missed. All I know is it's back together and it's good to go, and I didn't even disassemble the carb. I just put a little oil in there and left it because the carb was operational fine. So anyway, that just so happens to wrap up our episode of Engine Talk, and kind of the reason why I didn't show the reassembly of this. It was just one of those things I just felt like being alone and doing it. And here it is. So now I can put this thing back in the box and move on to other projects. So that's our Engine Talk video for today. And this engine is really kind of fun. I'm really excited about being able to run this guy.